and my guest is Judy Kane. And Judy is a PSYCH-K. We do the word psychic. Well, she's a PSYCH-K facilitator. I'm a psych. Now, how do you say? Are you doing a play on words there, or how is that pronounced? Is it pronounced psychic?
No, it's PSYCH-K. And
PSYCH-K. Okay,
yeah.
So that is how we say it. I'm a PSYCH-K facilitator, but I prefer to think of myself as your partner in creating supportive, subconscious beliefs that align with your conscious goals. I love seeing the look on a client's face when they realize that they have the power to easily change the barriers in their lives. I've been helping people change their subconscious beliefs using PSYCH-K since 2011. And I can't imagine a happier or more fulfilling career. Most of my previous working life was spent as an IT manager. And while this may seem very different to many people, there are actually many similarities between the two. PSYCH-K, much like IT, is a set of principles and processes. And when you change your subconscious belief, you must first identify what change needs to be made. The next step is to perform steps to make that change happen. The first time I saw PSYCH-K work, it resonated with me deeply, and I knew I had to learn how to facilitate it for myself and others. I've had extensive training in PSYCH-K and worked virtually with clients from around the world. As an experienced PSYCH-K facilitator, I also share my expertise in podcasts, workshops, and retreats. PSYCH-K has been life-changing for me, and I'm committed to partnering with you through this process to create new, supportive, subconscious beliefs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, PSYCH-K, Judy Kane. Judy, good morning again.
Good morning, Mark.
All right, I am thrilled. And again, Happy New Year to you. You're my first guest in 2022. And as I was sharing on the telephone when we talked a couple of minutes ago, this is a great topic to begin the year with, because we've just left an old year and now we've crossed over into a new year. And a lot of folks make resolutions and all of that. I'm not a resolution maker, but I do set goals. But they make these resolutions, and for the most part, they don't keep them. It's kind of like, I'm going to exercise. I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. They don't go. I'm going to do this. They don't do it. I'm going to stop this. They don't stop it. So, and all of this, where I'm going with this is connected to, really kind of like your beliefs and thought patterns, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I see you're an IT manager. I have my youngest daughter. She does IT. She's majored in IT, information. Actually, what is it? Information management. But it's in that area. But that was her major in college. Matter of fact, I think it is IT. But so when I saw that caught my eye too. But talk to me a little bit. Okay, where I usually, and for my authors, one of the first questions I do ask, even though I don't work off a question sheet, is kind of, where did the whole author concept come from? Is that something, did you always see yourself as an author? Did you write all the time in high school? I see you like IT, so obviously there's some logic and everything going on there. Kind of, did you ever think you were going to write a book, or was that always in the plans?
I never thought I was going to write a nonfiction book. Every so often I would think, oh, that's a good storyline for a fiction book. But no, I never felt, compelled to write a book. It just kind of happened. It surprised me as much as the people who knew me, actually. But I wanted to reach out further. I help people understand they don't have to live with the limits they've got in their lives. But that's kind of like one person at a time or one group at a time. And I thought if I wrote a book, it could have a wider impact.
And see, the title of her book is, and it was just released not too long ago, that's another reason why it's timely, is Your 4 Truths. It's the word Y-O-U-R with the number 4 in the middle, and then truths, T-R-U-T-H-S. How beliefs impact your life. And the author, of course, is Judy Kane. And I'm actually reading the book because I downloaded the book. This is how many of my guests come to me. I have a lot of different PR firms and PR companies that hit me up on email introducing me to the authors and whatever their latest books are. That's exactly what happened with Judy. The PR firm let me know, and as soon as I saw the title, I said, oh, I got to read that book. I said, that's one, because this is kind of like in my wheelhouse, in my area of self-development and so forth and so on. So as soon as I got the press release and I read it and I saw it, I downloaded the book and I started reading. I said, I got to get her on. And so me and the PR company, we worked to make today happen. That's kind of sort of how we got here. But the book is Your 4 Truths, How Beliefs Impact Your Life. And now as I'm reading the bio, and you called yourself, or you list yourself, or you see yourself, or you're letting others know that you are a PSYCH-K facilitator. Talk to us a little bit about, first of all, what is PSYCH-K? Because it says you've been working that since 2011. And matter of fact, if you want to, because you were talking about how IT and PSYCH-K is somewhat similar, you can kind of work us through that.
Sure. All right. So PSYCH-K is a set of processes. I don't have to intuit anything or interpret anything. It's a pretty straightforward process, and it's a very fast change process. Usually we can change any one belief in less than 5 minutes. So it's, most people's situations are a little bit more complicated than one belief, but you can make a lot of progress in an hour, is my point. And so I saw this work. Being an IT person doesn't necessarily mean you don't know anything about alternative methodologies, but I had little exposure. I didn't disbelieve in things that I'd never heard of. I just hadn't heard of a lot of things. But I saw this work with my former husband, and it was stunning what kind of a change happened with him, and I decided it was something I could learn, so I did. And I think the reason it appeals to me is we always start out when I'm talking with somebody of, so what's going on now, and what would you rather be true? What would you rather be happening? Which is pretty much what happens in IT as well, right? People come to you and they either want you to change something that exists or build something new, but they want something different than what they've got now. And so, it's not that different, even though it sounds like it when you first read it.
So IT is information technology, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that IT stood for the same thing
right,
that I know it as. So it's information technology. So what I'm hearing from you is the same type of clients come to you as an IT manager, because like you just said, they want something fixed, changed, improved, what have you. And pretty much clients for PSYCH-K are coming for the same reason, but for whatever's going on within them.
Yes, exactly.
So let's start, because I'm seeing it's registered. What actually is PSYCH-K?
All right. So it's a set of processes. We use muscle testing to communicate with the subconscious. Now, a lot of people don't know what muscle testing is, but it's something that some nutritionists use to figure out what supplements the body might need. Some chiropractors use it to determine where to manipulate something in the body. In PSYCH-K, we use muscle testing to communicate with the subconscious, to figure out what's really in there. And the best way to describe it is if you were in a room with me, and if I asked you to hold your arm out parallel to the floor, and your brain would send a signal to your arm, and your arm would go up. And if I asked you to think something that you liked and press gently on your wrist, your arm would stay up still. It would be a strong signal from your brain to your arm. But if I asked you to think of something that you dislike, it would be a little weaker signal, and your arm would at least wobble. There would be a difference in the strength of the signal. So that's how we use it for either determining something that your subconscious is okay with or stressed out with, or we use it for true-false statements for your subconscious. If you believe something that you say in your subconscious, the signal's strong. If you don't, it's weak. It's good for yes, no as well. So that's how we figure out what's actually in there. And so, once we determine what's in there, I'll tell you one of the big ones that I have found most people's subconsciouses do not believe is it's okay to have more money than I need. And so because there's so many mixed messages when you grow up, right? Money has a lot of complex conversations around it. And so if you muscle test that with most people, it's going to be a weak response. But that's something that most people would like their subconscious to believe because, it's nice to have a little cushion there with the money that you're bringing in.
Now, in terms of, like I just said a couple of minutes ago, for me, one of the things that really caught my attention in reading the press release was this whole notion of the conscious versus the subconscious. So I know exactly what you're talking about, but everybody in the listening audience may not, because they may not read the type books that I read and you write. Talk a little bit about the difference between the conscious and the subconscious.
Sure. So when we're born, we come in with a pretty much of a blank slate, right? We don't have an operating system, if you will, of beliefs. And the reason for that is that for the first 7 years, we are little sponges that just absorb the rules of wherever we landed. We learn what's safe. We learn what's not safe. Don't touch the fire and don't step in front of a moving vehicle. But we also learn the things that are safe within our family and community, the things that will keep us included in the group, if you will. So we're trying to learn all the things that will help us thrive the best way we can wherever we land. And this subconscious, gets populated for the most part by the time we're 7. Doesn't mean you can't have things go into it later. Certainly, incidents happen that are impactful, or, people who do things like PSYCH-K and other modalities can help you change these things. But for the most part, it's populated by the time you're 7. And it controls 95% of your behavior. It's your default mode, if you will. And so it's important for it to be supporting your conscious goals, because the conscious is only working when you're paying attention to it. The subconscious is going all the time.
Now, that's a key point right there, what you just made. The subconscious works 24/7, even when you are asleep. The conscious, as Judy just said, is when you're paying attention to something. That's why, in terms of, you've heard me say so many times on the show that words and what you listen to and what you watch and so forth are so powerful, because your subconscious is taking that in. You could be consciously paying attention to one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Judy, and your subconscious can still be either believing or taking in something else.
Yes, absolutely.
The subconscious...
It's so much faster than the conscious mind.
Correct.
It's like really a struggle to get past something that's in the subconscious. Hard work.
And the thing is, that's why they say in terms of affirmations and how you say things could make the difference, and how you focus on things will make the difference in how your subconscious takes it in. So if you, depending on how you phrase your affirmation, even though you think you're saying something in the positive, your subconscious is taking it in the negative. So if the affirmation ends with something that you feel is positive, the subconscious will only hear certain words of that. And that's what it will focus and key on. So you're wondering, well, how come I know I'm saying I'm this, I'm not going to that, I'm not, because your subconscious is taking it in and focusing on the negative word that's within the affirmation. I don't know.
Well, with PSYCH-K, when we're trying to figure it, there are two general areas that I focus on. 3 things that people come to me for, but they fall into 2 categories. It's emotions that you might have that are uncomfortable for you when you think about doing certain things or being with certain people. Or it is conscious goals you've been working really hard to hit and it just is not happening for you. Or physical symptoms of stress, because that stress is caused by beliefs as well.
Correct. And now I'm going straight to the book here. Many of the patterns and outcomes people want to change are related to some combination of resistance to 4 basic beliefs. Once they can change these beliefs and others specific to their own situations, they become happier. They stop subconsciously blocking success and whatever goals they have, and they generally experience a higher level of fulfillment. I call these your truths because you deserve to believe them. We all deserve to have ease and peace in our lives. Your 4 truths. You are safe. You are worthy. You are lovable. You are connected to something larger than yourself. In this book, we'll explore each of these truths. How does it look when you don't believe these? How does it look when you do? What are some situations that can cause your subconscious to believe them or not? So let's talk a little bit about it, because we don't want to give the entire book away, but we want to whet the appetite of the listening audience. And listening audience, this is another one I recommend that you, for me, I download them on my Kindle, but if you can order them from and we'll talk later at the end of the interview, but you can go to your local retailer, you can order them however but this is one I do recommend. So Judy, talk to me a little bit about, that little excerpt that I just read.
Sure. Those are the 4 categories that I've seen most often with my clients. Things tend to group, and that's where I've noticed the biggest number of things that are holding people back. And safety is kind of, and they correlate to basic human needs too, as well, right? We need to feel safe.
Correct.
And safe isn't just about physical safety. You need to feel emotionally safe. You need to feel spiritually safe. There are all other aspects of safety. And with physical safety, it's okay. It's okay if you feel dangered and you get all alert and you've got stress hormones that go through your body and you get ready to fight or run or do something to help protect yourself. And then when the danger's over, ideally, you go back to your normal set of responses. But a lot of us go around with chronic stress from, safety issues that are day in and day out. And that's a terrible way to spend your life. It, uses tons of energy. When you're stressed out, you don't make decisions as well as you do when you're not. And, it's not healthy, really, to have the stress hormones in there all day, all night type of a thing. So, when you are learning what's safe as a small child, different families have different ideas of what's safe. And, physical safety, you might have the family that goes rock climbing, and you might have the family that wraps the child in bubble wrap when they walk outside. You got everything in between, right? But there's the fear of failing. If it's not okay to fail in your family, you're not going to try things. You're not going to take risks. And if you fail, you're not going to try again. That's learned. None of us would be walking if we gave up at the first failure. When we start trying to, stand up and walk, we fall. And you watch little kids, they keep trying until they get up and start walking. We learn that's not safe sometimes within the family context to keep trying at something until you succeed.
Interesting.
So that's the safety part of it, So you want to feel like you can make your choices based on things that you want to have, as opposed to based on fear.
So that's the safety piece. There was 4 in total. Matter of fact, you can, kind of do the same thing you just did for the first one with the remaining 3 as well. You are safe. You are worthy. You are lovable. Mm-hmm. You are connected to something larger than yourself. So kind of unpacked worthy, lovable, and connection, kind of like you did safety.
Sure. So worthy, self-esteem is another basic need according to Maslow, with his pyramid of his hierarchy of needs. And it's not just how you feel about yourself; it's how you perceive others, what they think of you as well. But you have people that don't think that they deserve to be successful, or they think that they don't have good enough ideas to voice them, or they hide their life, basically. And it's because somewhere along the line they have been convinced, their subconscious has acquired the belief that they don't deserve to have what it is whatever it is that they're trying to have or to succeed at whatever they're trying to succeed with. And that's self-defeating and demoralizing, right? And it's not a happy place to be in if you don't think you deserve to have the good things that are out there. We limit what we have access to by these beliefs. So if you can believe that it's there and you have access to it and you can get it as well as anybody else, it makes a big difference in how you go about your day. The same thing with being lovable. If you don't feel like you're lovable, it's really hard to have strong relationships with people.
Absolutely.
When clients come in and they want a better relationship with somebody or they want to establish a relationship with somebody, I almost always start with, well, so what's your relationship with yourself? Because if you don't love yourself, if you don't believe you're lovable, it's the relationships you build aren't going to be authentic.
Correct.
The connected with something bigger than yourself, I see people feeling really isolated these days. We're separate from each other. We're separate from nature. We're separate from so many things. And if you can't put yourself in the shoes of somebody else or consider the impact of what you do on others or your environment, it's a very you don't have compassion for people.
Correct.
You can't. Yeah, I mean, you need to have the compassion. You need to be able to collaborate with people. We've got so many big problems going on in this world.
Correct.
And we're all connected with these things. You know, it impacts us all, and our decisions impact us all. So raising awareness to that, I think, is equally important.
No, in terms of like, I'm in the midst of a situation right now that was brought upon because of some of the very things that you're talking about. And you're so right in terms of being able to love yourself, because if you don't love yourself, like you just said, that your relationship ultimately won't be authentic and most likely is not going to survive. And so the whole thing that you just said about being isolated, I just had this conversation with my mother last night, as well as my sister and my aunt, in terms of this whole last 2 years with this constant disconnection and isolation and doing everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, technology is good. Zoom and Google and all that, it's great that we have it. However, human beings are not designed to have to function like that, this constant isolation. And I believe it has driven and exacerbated some of the very things that you were just talking about. As a matter of fact, I skipped down to the childhood experiences because, as I said, I'm in the midst of a situation that I honestly believe that all these things that you're talking about contributed to it. The experiences we have in childhood create most of our subconscious beliefs. It is generally believed that, as you just said, about 7 years old. I talk about situations where childhood traumas have been experienced. There has been extensive research done in this area connecting specific types of trauma to behavioral and health outcomes in later life. The traumas generally fall into categories of abuse, neglect, and family circumstances and are called adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. The study concluded that there was a high correlation between childhood trauma and chronic health problems, mental illness, and substance use problems in later life. Subsequent studies have expanded on the definition of these traumas and gathered more information about the consequences and prevalences of these in childhood. It is important to know that most people experience some sort of trauma in their life. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the 4 areas, particularly like we were talking about safety. And now traumatic experiences come into play. How does that now impact, like I see the health issues, the mental health issues, so forth and so on. How does that play out to folks, as things that happened to them in their childhood and now they're adults?
Well, it can take so many different forms. I can tell you a story that it's one of them that's in the book. But I saw this woman, we had a group practice when I first started learning how to do PSYCH-K that met at my house every couple of weeks. And she had heard about us from somebody, and she came because she was really worried about her career. A lot of people are afraid of speaking in public, right? This woman was so afraid of speaking out that she couldn't even do like the old style conference phone call
right.
with a management group. They met weekly to discuss things, and she could give the data for her group, but she never could participate in any of the brainstorming for solving issues or getting, creative solutions and growth types of things. And she knew that was impacting her career. And she had been like this as long as she remembered. She didn't know why at the time, although we discovered in the process when it started. And so we did when asked when it started, she suddenly remembered that it was first grade and a teacher had asked a question and she did not raise her hand, but the teacher called on her to give the answer. And so she gave the best answer she knew, and the teacher made fun of the answer she gave. It was just one small thing. It might have even been meant as a joke by the teacher, who knows, but it had a lasting impact on this woman. And we changed that one belief. It took, less than 5 minutes. And, her whole world changed with that, because it was then safe to say, to speak out, to say what she thought was going on, and to contribute to conversations. We heard later she'd become a trainer with her company.
Just the opposite.
Yeah.
Because the trainer and it's interesting you would bring up public speaking, because I teach public speaking on the college level. I love public speaking. I tell folks all the time, you could put me in the middle of the biggest stadium filled with folks, it would not faze me. But the research has shown folks would rather literally, not figuratively, would literally rather die than to speak in front of a crowd of people.
Yeah.
And it was very
threatening.
Yes. And the fact that you could, and the reason it resonated and you heard me go, ugh, is because when I'm not here doing radio, my day job, as you will, is being principal of a school. And I'm constantly helping the staff understand we have to be so careful of the things we say to children, because it could very well do exactly what you said. If that teacher teased that child at that early age and now put in her subconscious that she is not a public speaker, and now that stayed with her until she came to you, that explains a lot of why people do what they do. We don't know the experiences people that have had that drives their decisions and their behaviors.
Right. So that's where the compassion comes in, right?
Correct. It really does. And in some instances, like I said, I'm in the midst of a situation where it has wreaked havoc. I honestly believe exactly what you described in terms of childhood experiences, traumas, life traumas, so forth and so on, has now caused mental illness or caused some really aberrant behaviors and decisions. And I personally believe it all can be tied back to exactly what you're talking about by here in this book, in terms of the mental illness or whatever being brought about by childhood experiences. And because the childhood experiences now caused the person not to love themselves or this, that, and the other, it has just wreaked absolute havoc.
Yep.
So
I see that with clients all the time that have had, really unfortunate childhoods where, the child makes up the stories of why these things are happening, and the subconscious gets beliefs from all these things to get the kid through whatever it is they're living through. And sometimes those aren't good beliefs at the time, but they really aren't helpful once you grow up.
Correct.
When you're not in that environment anymore, hopefully. They're still there. They're still playing in the background all the time.
Correct. And that's what, in terms of your mind, literally going to the subconscious, will go into defense mode. It will go into defense mode and shut down and start literally negating or ignore. I'm trying to think of the word. It's almost as if whatever they've shut down to doesn't exist anymore. That it will go into defense mechanism, but based on the errant beliefs. Because as you just said, that might have been good for the time that was happening, but that's not happening now.
Right. But they, one function of the mind is to filter through all the stuff that comes at us and select the things that support the beliefs we have, right?
Correct.
So you're just gathering proof of your beliefs when you're right there looking at stuff, because you can't possibly consider everything that's out there. It's an interesting conundrum to be in that just kind of feeds itself.
Correct. I'm going back to the book. Most of us in the modern world are living with a chronic sense of danger due to beliefs we are not even aware of. To have your systems be chronically on high alert diverts energy from your goals to your fears. It also, and this is what I was just talking about, it also impairs judgment. If the fear part of your brain is engaged, the judgment part has a hard time overriding that. In these cases, you aren't enjoying your life. You aren't even responding to it in meaningful ways. Yeah.
I mean, and you see that all the time. I mean, people pick jobs because of fear. Maybe the thing they want to do doesn't pay enough, right? So they pick the thing that'll pay more, but it's not what they want to be doing.
Correct.
So that's a fear-based choice. They choose activities that seem like they're going to be safe or where they're going to be successful, even if it's not what speaks to them. And even the little things, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to drive? Where am I going to walk? Who am I going to be with? All those things, if they are all based on fear of avoiding pain or something, that's not living a full life.
Correct. Correct. And see, again, I'm going back to the book because, needless to say, I'm gone through the book. It says, many women I have worked with were abused as children. They avoid attracting attention to themselves because being unseen was a protection mechanism they used to avoid being hurt. But this protection hinders them as adults. They frequently struggle with unwanted weight, yet those extra pounds help prevent unwanted sexual attention. There are a variety of ways to avoid being noticed. Whatever causes or coping mechanisms this fear presents people from, like you just said, fully expressing themselves, being authentic, and feeling at ease. That is not living. I could not agree with you more. That is not living.
Right. So, and people don't even realize they're doing it, right? I mean, it's like, it feels like decision making. It's like the pros and the cons list, and
right.
Well, this makes good sense, right? But it's not. It's based on faulty logic.
Bingo. Now you sound like the IT. Faulty logic. That's absolutely right. And again, things really get messed up based on faulty logic. And as you said, the person doesn't even realize it's faulty logic.
Yeah.
If you've just joined us, listening audience, and I hope, first off, I hope you've been with me since 6, but I certainly hope you've been with me since 7. I'm more concerned with you being with me at 7 than at 6. But I'm talking this morning to Judy Kane, and her book is Your 4 Truths, How Beliefs Impact Your Life. That's what we're talking about this morning, that a lot of folks think they are living when the truth of the matter is they're not living, as we say, their best life, because of their beliefs. So, I heard you say something about being able to change a belief in 5 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you kind of come to the 5 minute?
Yeah, I know. It's most of the time when I have clients, it's like the first time they change a belief, it's like, well, it just can't be that easy, and yet it can be. And I think I said before, but I want to stress that not all life situations are caused by a single belief. So changing one thing in 5 minutes doesn't necessarily mean that your whole life is going to be different from that point on. Although for the example I gave with the woman speaking, it actually was, So you never know. It can be one thing. It can be a combination of things. But, yeah, the process is fast you can change things, and that's the big message in the book. Two big messages in my book. One is to help people understand, make some sense out of what goes on in their life, and figure out if they've got patterns there that are caused by beliefs that they want to change. And the other thing is for people to understand they can change them. They're not stuck with this. One of the things I hear frequently when people are talking about why they don't try to do things or why they're not successful at certain things is, well, that's just the way I've always been. And they kind of accept the fact that's the way they have to be. And that's not true. You don't have to accept these things. There are lots of different modalities and lots of people out there that can help people change these beliefs so that they can do the things they want to do. Which is the point, right?
No, it really is. And I think the thing that fascinates me the most, particularly, is what we were just talking about, is the folks that don't even realize they need help. The folks that think their distorted view is the reality. I think, how do you, because now clearly your clients at some point come to that reality that, I need to talk to somebody, and this is probably a crazy question, but for those that never come to that realization, I guess they just kind of float around in their own little worlds.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's their life, and that's what they figure is supposed to be their life, and they just accept it. And that's sad.
It really is. Now, as I was reading the bio and I was going into PSYCH-K, do folks get PSYCH-K mixed up with psychic?
Yeah, occasionally. And I have no psychic abilities. I would want to ask what's going to happen next week to me. Get me a dartboard. But sometimes people have, particularly when I'm saying it, they just hear a word that they're familiar with because this isn't something that everybody's heard of. So they'll translate it to a known word and think that's what I'm talking about.
Correct.
That's not my thing.
But these and again, because I work with, and this is my 21st year in education. Interesting, like you went from IT and you're doing PSYCH-K. I actually went from corporate America, 15 years of that, to now 21 years in education. And these areas that you touch on in terms of safe, worthy, lovable, and connected, they are so crucial. My latest assignment, which this is my third year in it, has been an all-boys school. It has been, it's a leadership school for young men, but we have to do a lot of work on self-esteem. Matter of fact, these 4 areas, we have to do a lot of work, and that's why I guess they leap out at me as well. A lot of work on self-esteem and helping them understand that you are somebody, and that's that's a part of the whole leadership thing, and public speaking is a part of that, as a matter of fact. But it's just, again, and you wouldn't be because you deal with this, and I wouldn't be because I study it and read about it and work with kids. But you would be amazed how many people do not feel they're worthy, do not feel they're loved, do not feel they're safe, and they don't even have a clue about being connected to anything higher than them. It's a large number.
It's huge, and it's such a concern to me personally, looking at students that have come from lives that are they've got a lot of those categories in their life, either neglect or abuse or something that started before they were born. And, they don't, I have volunteered, tutoring with kids, back when I was in corporate, we had lots of programs that we did this for. There were some children we could see that, in first grade, their eyes were already, they didn't have life in them.
Correct.
They had no hope. They had no ability to dream of what they could become.
This year alone, I've had 2 fourth graders. They were 8 and 9 years old that were talking about suicide. Mm. And the question, we go like, you're 8. You're 9. I mean, and one of them had put it in writing. No, both of them put it in writing. One, they had put, I hate my life, I want to die. One had put, I forget how he had phrased his, but it's one thing. Now we go on alert whenever we hear them. We go on high alert whenever it's in writing. All right. And we asked one of the young men, did he have a plan? Now, one of the young men said, oh, no, I never attempted it. I mean, he's very articulate. Oh, no, I never. But we still had to do what we had to do in it. But the other young man said he was going to go up to the top of the building and jump off. Wow. Now this is 8 years old. I remember being 8. I remember getting a bicycle whenever I was 8. I could sit here and look at the picture right now of me on my little red bike at 8 years old. I remember on my 8th birthday party, I got a birthday card that folded out into a crown. And I am wearing that birthday card crown on my head, sitting on my little red bike at 8. And so I sit here and I look at an 8-year-old that's talking about he wants to take his life.
Yeah. I'm part of a nonprofit here, and I live in Tarpon Springs, Florida, and there's a nonprofit here called Peace for Tarpon, and we try to educate the community on trauma-informed lenses and resilience and that type of thing. And so, a lot of what we do is try to explain to people behaviors that happen in the community and trying to be, compassionate towards people. You don't say what's wrong with you. It's like what happened to you when a child acts out. There's just a lot of things about building resilience. It's if the child has just one reasonably sane person that they think cares about them, that can make all the difference in a life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things with this pandemic, because in March 2020, our students went home not to return for the rest of that school year nor the next school year. We did everything at that point on computer. And our concern was for many of our students, exactly what you just described as having that one caring person, the school was their safe haven. And now we kicked them back into situations and we got a chance to see on some of these cameras. We got a chance to see as we were peering into folks' homes exactly what our students were living with and dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I had one situation where I had to send my security officer and the police to a home based on what I was seeing on the camera.
Wow.
And so exactly what you said. I'm talking from experience where I've had a child that got suspended for profanity or cursing at a teacher or whatever. When the parent now comes into the office and we're having the meeting, the parent will be cursing at the kid right there in the meeting. I have to stop. I'm like, ma'am, Miss such. You do understand that's what the child just got suspended for, and yet you're doing the same thing here in the office. So there is no question as to how now, as a child, while you could wind up building up these I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, if everything that you hear is you're no good, you're just like your old no good daddy, if everything that you're hearing is that, I could see where the subconscious would not take that in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. It totally gets it. And believes it. It's like, why wouldn't they? This is what they are designed to do is acquire the beliefs of wherever they land, right? So if that's what they're being told, that's what they're going to believe.
I heard you say earlier, again, going back to IT talking, an operating system. The subconscious is, for the most part, like our operating systems. Yeah. And you can get something in your operating system. You can get something that will just constantly keep playing itself over and over and over again. So if your operating system is constantly telling you you're no good, or if your operating system is constantly telling you you're not lovable, or you're not worthy, or you're not safe, everything you do is based on what the operating system, just like a computer, what the operating system is telling you.
Yep. It absolutely is. My first summer job was the summer after 10th grade, and I tutored math. And I was stunned at the number of children whose mothers, I tutored mostly girls because my connection was with a girls' school. And the mothers would bring their children to my house for the tutoring. And so, frequently the mothers would say, well, it's no wonder that Sally is bad at math because I've never been any good at math. And I would just cringe.
That's
I
right.
didn't know about this stuff back then, but it was like I knew that was not a good thing to be telling a child, right?
No, you're absolutely right. And that's, I mean, those are the type things like we really, and now when I'm working with parents, like I was telling you with the teachers, when I work with parents, I try to help them not make statements like that, exactly what you just said. In terms of with the teachers, I try to help them, do not assign reading or math or whatever as a punishment. Because what will happen to the child is they will now connect having to read with being punished. And they will not ever come to fully enjoy reading because, again, back to the subconscious, they will connect the fact that if I did something bad, I was told to read. So I help the teachers understand, don't ever assign math problems or reading or any type of assignment. Do not assign it as punishment because the connection will be made that when I have to do this, your subconscious will go back to, that happened to me whenever I did something wrong and I got punished. So to your point, it's the same thing in terms of somebody saying, well, I wouldn't expect you to be good in math because I wasn't good in math either.
Right. Well, and all the studies they've done on teachers' expectations where if they tell teachers they've got a gifted class, then all the kids perform really well. And
Correct.
If they tell the teachers, and the children are living up to the teacher's expectations. And they probably acquire those beliefs along the way and feel like they are either gifted or challenged, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, that was back in 1968 or Jane Elliott's study with the blue eye, brown eyes.
Oh,
that whole experiment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because and that one, it was interesting because I'm very familiar with that in terms of the first week, the children, the teacher said, okay, everybody with brown eyes, you're the brightest in the class, so forth and so on. And to your point, all the kids with the brown eyes, they performed spectacular. Then the next week, teacher came in and said, I made a mistake. It wasn't the brown-eyed kids who were brightest, the blue-eyed kids. So now you had the brown-eyed kids that were demoralized, and the blue-eyed kids were like, oh, this is great, we're the best, and they perform the best. But to your point, it is what's fed into you is what you will ultimately do. The expectation is what you will ultimately rise to or surpass. And it works the other way, that if you're constantly told you're nothing, you will act in that manner as well.
Because you don't think you can do anything better.
Correct. Now, talk to me a little bit about, like, as we're talking about subconscious and everything, and I know there are different facets of mental illness, but what are your thoughts, or if you know anything about, like, narcissism or borderline personality disorder or bipolar or any of those in terms of subconscious?
Not my area of expertise that I would want to, like, offer clinical opinions on anything. But, some of those seem to be related to being isolated as a child, of not being in a household where there was empathy and understanding.
Correct.
If you don't see it, if it's not modeled for you, it's hard to do. If you don't grow up experiencing compassion, you don't really know, you can't believe that that's a good way to go, I don't think.
Well, that's interesting in terms of, again, going back to the traumas and everything. And so, like you just said, if you don't grow up experiencing compassion, how would you then know that I need to love myself?
Right.
And that's kind of like a question and a statement, because if I've always said I love me some me. I have no problem saying that. But there are many folks who I'm amazed whenever I get, and sometimes I'll ask my students, well, do you like yourself? And I almost have to jump back whenever one of them says no. Oh, yeah. There's
so many people that can't say the words, I love myself, or being proud of yourself.
Right.
There are people that's so far beyond their capability. It's like they've been told they shouldn't, be boastful, or, there are lots of messages you get when you're little, that make it so that you don't feel like you ought to celebrate the things you do well.
Correct. I did a teacher workshop this summer, and one of the exercises we did was I brought a big, one of the long mirrors, or the long, full-length mirror. Mm-hmm. And what the exercise was, you had to walk up to the mirror and you had to make an I am statement and, something about yourself. I am beautiful. I am attractive. I am sexy. I am young. I am great. I am this. And that was the exercise that each teacher had to go up in front of that mirror and say something. And what I was doing for them was, this is what I want you to do with your students. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to have them make I am statements, hopefully in the positive. But as they look in the mirror, they're constantly feeding that into their spirit or into themselves in terms of I am, because, they say whatever you put after the two words I am becomes your reality.
Yep, absolutely.
So whenever
you're creating that, each of us is creating our experience based on our perspective.
Absolutely. So now, in terms of now, like I said, for what we've been going through for the last 2, because I do declare this feels like the Twilight Zone to me. What we've been going through with this pandemic since, March or February of 2020 to this point right now, this is January 2022, and we're still grappling with it. How much has this had an impact on what's going on with us subconsciously? Because in the beginning of the interview, we're saying like so many things are just seem like they're off, and I could not agree with you more. So many things that are going on. How much of the pandemic is influencing or kind of causing, because I know the isolation is big. It's beginning to hammer on me, but I know the isolation piece of it is big, but again, my question is how much, in your views and thoughts in terms of the subconscious, is this whole pandemic playing on us?
Well, it's certainly the fear part is playing on a lot of people, of the fear of, and, I get it. There have been so many illnesses and deaths and job losses and that just being cooped up in the same place with the same people for that long is,
right.
Can wear on your nerves. Again, it's how you frame it, I think, is the big difference. And if you focus on all those things that were bad about it, those are going to grow, and that's what you're going to be noticing the whole time. And if you can focus on the things that were gifts, if you will, of this, that's going to make it seem a little different. I've got 2 grandchildren. They're 7 and 10.
All right now.
And and last year their parents chose virtual school for the year once everything started up, and I gave them 1 day a week to sit there because the first grader needed to have an adult by him whenever they were online.
Right.
And both parents worked, so they had, the 2 parents, the 2 kids. Luckily, the house was big enough; they had their 4 corners, weren't in the same room with each other and overlapping. But you're right; you see those windows in with the Zoom calls with 22.
Right, that's it.
You see a lot going on in there. But the kids were upset because they couldn't do their sports activities,
right,
and see their friends and all this stuff. And I stayed for dinner one night after the day that I was there, and so I said, so what's something good that's happened because of this? Right, this was early on last year it was in the fall somewhere, and there was a dead silence for a little bit from the 2 kids, and then finally my granddaughter said, well, we get to go on family walks now. And, we go on bike rides with Dad, several times a week, for more than 5 minutes, and so they started thinking about the things the space had given them time to do.
Right.
They weren't in the car driving back and forth. They didn't have to get to all the activities, so there was more family time.
Well, that's good. They actually...
Yeah.
No, I was going to say that's good they actually picked up on that. And that's a very good exercise in terms of, okay, let's see if we can reframe this to say, all right, because clearly, now, because here in the area that I'm in New Jersey, the numbers have spiked. The first 2 weeks back after the Christmas break or the holiday break, we're virtual again. We're virtual. We won't go back live again until January the 18th. So when we came out of Christmas break, the first day of school was January 4th. We came back virtually for these 2 weeks. And I would rather be in the building, but it did come to me the other day. It's like, well, you know what? In the morning, I'm not worrying with the stress of commuting from home to the job. Actually, that time that I would be commuting, I could rest a little bit longer. When I'm sitting there having my coffee and toast, I'm not worrying about getting in the car going. All I have to do is walk to my office and turn the computer on.
Yeah.
So there are definitely some upsides, and the trick is finding the upside to whatever situation that you're in. And I'm going to go back to the book for the last chapter, talking about, because we're coming down to near the end, the physical symptoms of stress. I don't think enough people understand that what's going on in your mind actually is causing what goes on in your body.
Yeah. And it's a very real connection there. I think almost everybody understands that stress can cause different symptoms in the body, right? There are conditions that are caused by inflammation. The inflammation is caused by stress hormones. I think, a lot of people understand migraines are probably stress-driven and, other things like that. But in my experience doing the PSYCH-K, there are so many additional things that are based on beliefs that it still surprises me. I expect it. I see it on a regular basis, but it still surprises me when somebody can change one belief and suddenly something, some mobility issue has gone away, or a pain that's been there for quite a while it just goes away in a very short period of time. Nothing changed except for that belief.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, we've come down now to the interview, and I was talking about this earlier in terms of, letting folks know how to get the book, how to get in touch with you. The last part of the interview, the last few minutes, what I do is I shut the mic off and I allow my guests to promote any way they would like. The only thing you cannot say is the cost or dollar amounts, but anything short of dollar amount or costs or anything, because they can work that out once they get in touch with you. But anything short of that, I'm going to turn the mic off and allow you the opportunity to promote the book and your services and anything else, websites, contact information. This is your shout outs. If you want to shout out the PR company, anything you want to do for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to be quiet. It's yours with the exception of a dollar amount.
Okay, yeah, no dollars. So my website would be the first place I would encourage people to go to, because there's more information about what I do, and there's information there on how to get in touch with me. And the website is www.alignedconsciousness, AlignedConsciousness.com. And you can also get to a page there about my book, or you can go directly to a website page, which is yourfortruths.com. It's the word your spelled out, the number 4, and then truth, plural. And that gets you to seeing more about the book, and if anybody would like to buy it, there's a link there that you can, pick your favorite place to buy a book. It's not just through Amazon. It's, you can pick local bookstores or, any other chains that are out there. So those would be 2 good ways to engage further. And on my website, if people think that they, might have some beliefs they'd like to change, I offer a free 15-minute phone call to anybody to kind of explain better what I do and how that might apply to something that they want to change. So that's it. My name's Judy Kane, and my business is Aligned Consciousness.
Well, Judy, thank you. So I know I heard you say you were calling from Florida, so thank you. At least you were on the East Coast just like I am, so we're in the same time zone, because sometimes my guests are calling from California. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning their time. So at least we were in the same time zone. It was 7 for me, 7 for you. But my guest, again, thank you so much for rising early, is Judy Kane, just like it sounds. It's Judy, last name with a K, not C, Kane. And the book is Your 4 Truths, How Beliefs Impact Your Life. Thank you so much. I found the discussion to be informative, as well as inspiring to help folks understand. Like I said, I couldn't think of a better way to start the year off, because we're at the point now where we have now I guess we're in the 8th day. So if you subtract 8 from 365, you're talking about what now? Maybe 297 left. So you're talking here, we have 297 more days to write a brand new script. When we started on January 1st, we had 365 days. And so if you subtract, what is it now? Like I said, this is the 8th day, 8 from 365. You're at about 350 something or other, somewhere up in there. So let me see. I guess 10 from 365 would be 355. So if you add another couple days, so we have about 357 more days that we can write a new script. And that script is from your beliefs. So that's why I could not think of a better show to start the year off with. And I thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you much success with the book.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this.
All right. I will send you a copy of the links. They'll be on my YouTube channel, as well as I'll give you an MP3 link. And once you receive that, you are free to do whatever you'd like with them. They're yours.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right.
Put them on my website. Yep.
There you go. All right. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.